Too many amateur photographers throughout history have been ignored by the world and underappreciated by their families.
You got that thing focused?
But I've recently discovered that the work of the amateur photographer is priceless in making an accurate record of everyday life. During the 1940s and 50s, my grandfather, Arthur Sonnenberg, the son of German immigrants, took hundreds of black and white photos of his family doing mundane everyday tasks while going about their daily lives in a Detroit suburb. When my grandparents passed away in the 1980s, my mom brought home big boxes full of loose photographs in various forms of decay. As a little kid, I'd get a kick out of sorting through them and seeing what my mom looked like as a little girl. But at the time, I had absolutely no appreciation for the thought that went into making these images. A few years before my mom passed away, I thought it would be a good idea to scan all of the photos so I could save them in digital form on my computer. I wanted her to tell me all of the names of any of the people in the photographs that I didn't recognize as my relatives. I wanted to make a record for future generations. It wasn't until a few days ago when I came across my grandfather's photos on an external hard drive that I really started to appreciate his photography. Unlike some of the professional family portraits I had scanned in, his photographs were candid and real, and they told a simple story of everyday life. Even though they weren't professional, they weren't careless snapshots either. They were carefully composed and they brought out the true personality of my loved ones. This is one of my favorite photos of my mom doing her homework. It wasn't staged or posed or anything. He just decided to grab his camera and take a photo of her when she was deep in concentration. Whenever my mom would see this photo, it always brought back so many memories of her school days. She was the only one in her family to graduate high school. Both of her parents dropped out to find work, and all of her brothers and sisters dropped out of high school too. During my mom's senior year, her mother encouraged her to drop out too, but she was so determined to get her diploma. Another story my mom would tell whenever she would see this photograph is a time that she ran out of elementary school in tears. A new girl at my mom's suburban Detroit elementary school who had moved from the segregated South asked my mom, and I quote, "Do you have Negroid blood in you?" My mom wasn't sure exactly what that meant, but the girl kept commenting on her features, saying they weren't exactly white. When she ran through the door of her home in the middle of the day, everyone was surprised. One of her uncles told her that her features were beautiful, but her mom told her that maybe she could apply some lemon juice to her skin to lighten it. Because of this one photo, I was taught so much about race and segregation in the 1950s, and also about the importance of following your own goals and not quitting school just because everyone else was. I love this next photo taken in the late 40s because my grandmother wasn't even dressed up. She was in a house dress with her hair wrapped up, holding my mom. But even though she doesn't have her hair and makeup done, there's a certain radiance in her expression that stopped me cold when I was going through the photos. There's an unmistakable look of contentment and tranquility as she stares back at my grandfather holding her third child. I can tell she's satisfied with the cozy home she's helped to create with my grandfather for their growing family. One illusion I had about the 40s and 50s is that most mothers walked around in fancy dresses with high heels and pearls, sort of like June Cleaver. But my mom explained to me that absolutely wasn't true. Around the house, most women wore a casual dress, and they only got fixed up when they were going into town. This next photo of the family's television set is interesting to me. I've definitely seen old TV sets from the 50s at the Henry Ford Museum, but to see the size of it in a typical living room of a small suburban Detroit home is fascinating. It looks so comfortable to sit directly on the floor in front of it. An interesting story my mom would tell whenever she would see this photo is that they weren't allowed to watch American Bandstand. My grandfather came from a long line of Baptists and Mennonites, and his grandfather converted from Judaism. He was raised to believe that dancing was wicked. My grandmother, on the other hand, came from a long line of rum runners, and she loved to dance. And when ABC began to run episodes of American Bandstand at 3 p.m. when my grandfather wasn't home, she'd let my mom and her brothers and sisters watch it all they wanted. What my grandfather didn't know wouldn't hurt anybody. In this photo, the package ice cream sign always confused me as a kid. I grew up in a world where you could get a carton of ice cream so easily at the grocery store. When I asked my mom why they would make such a big deal about selling packaged ice cream, she explained that back in the 50s it wasn't readily available everywhere. This place was called Butt's Ice Cream Shop. It was connected with Frank Peck's store. It was on the corner of Mound in Chicago and Warren, Michigan. My mom explained that every Saturday my grandfather would drive my grandma to the store and he would sit in the car with the kids while she did all her shopping. My grandfather never wanted my grandmother to drive on her own. but when my mom grew up, she secretly taught her. This photo of my grandmother having a nice cozy gossip in her kitchen on the rotary phone brings back so many memories. In a world before sterile and motionless text messages, people used to carry on wonderful conversations that could last for hours. As a little girl in the 80s, I used to eavesdrop on my mom's conversations, and I would learn so much about all the secret dramas unfolding in the neighborhood. That's how I learned that my best friend Keith's father was stealing drugs out of his home, and then another friend's mom left the dad for another woman. I kind of feel sorry for the kids growing up nowadays with their lack of opportunities for eavesdropping on phone conversations. When I see this next photo of my grandmother relaxing out in nature, I feel as if she's inviting me to come and join her. I'm not sure if she's on a picnic or at the cabin up north, or maybe she's just in the backyard, but lounging on the grass surrounded by the serenity of nature could do wonders to melt away the stress of everyday life in 2026. Even if it was only for a moment, I wish I could step back in time and lay there next to her, enjoying the stillness. The photos that I'm enjoying the most are those that capture the subjects almost completely oblivious to the camera. It's almost like he was a hidden observer. In this photo, my mom's brother and sister seem almost oblivious to his presence. I also appreciate these photos taken at meal times without the dishes being cleared away. There used to be a time when families would gather at the dinner table at a set time and actually share a meal together and discuss their day. Candid shots weren't my grandfather's only specialty. He did enjoy composing a portrait or two. What impresses me is that his portraits never look forced. Without fail, he always seemed to capture the personality of the subject so naturally. I love this portrait of my Uncle Kenny with a gleam of mischief in his eye. I love this photo he arranged of everyone laying on the ice. Or this one where he has my grandmother on his shoulder and he's also trying to lift up her brother. The one thing I've learned from going through my grandfather's photographs is that the work of an amateur photographer is invaluable. Unlike a professional portrait photographer who gets perfectly posed and polished images of people in their finest clothes, the amateur photographer is able to capture a much more realistic view of everyday life. And unlike a photojournalist who captures dramatic events that are newsworthy, the amateur photographer captures the much more subtle trials and tribulations and joys of everyday life. I've decided I want to start capturing more candid photos of my family. I took this one of my brother without his permission. In a world of AI summaries that often edit out the truth from history, I think it's more important now, more than ever, for us each to document our own life stories in photographs. I definitely want to take my grandfather's photographs and create a photo book for his descendants to enjoy. I would highly encourage you to do the same thing. If you have a box of old faded photographs laying around, I would highly recommend digitizing them so you could preserve them for the future. I also wanted to give thanks to Robert Loudon for his special gift to this channel. If you like this video, give it a like, consider subscribing for more photography-related content from a newbie like me. God bless.